We don't know much about this deal, so tell us, walk us through the framework. What are the top line numbers, and how, if at all, are you going to pay for it?
So what you have in this bill is that historic generational investment that the president has been talking about. We're talking about the biggest dedicated investment in bridges since the Eisenhower administration when they set up the interstate highway system in the first place. We're talking about the biggest investment in public transit that we've ever done as a country, the most for passenger rail since Amtrak was set up. It's got funding to get lead out of the pipes that take drinking water to our kids, funding to get Americans connected to broadband, so many things that are so long overdue. And I think it's extraordinary in today's Washington to see, frankly, Democratic and Republican senators agreeing on much of anything, let alone a major area of domestic policy. But that's what this deal represents. And this is a big step toward getting it turned into law, signed by the president and enacted so that agencies across the administration, including mine, can start deploying those dollars and getting them out to the communities that need them.
And how are we going to pay for it, or are we just going to send the bill to future generations?
No, this is paid for with a combination of several measures. This includes repurposing dollars that went unspent from some of the previous rounds of COVID relief, although it's important to mention that we insisted that there would be no diversion of rescue plan dollars for transit or other important infrastructure uses. It includes a number of adjustments on the corporate side. And let's remember that infrastructure is one of those things that actually pays for itself. You look at the macroeconomic growth that this is going to lead to. And that's not just us saying it. This is independent economists analyzing this, talking about how much more the economy will grow, how many more millions of jobs the economy will create if we do this and advance the president's economic vision. And this really is a winner.
So theoretically, you might have a deal in the Senate. You still have the House of Representatives to deal with. Politico reports that the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, Peter DeFazio, a Democrat, is angry. He says he was iced out of negotiations. Yesterday, he called the Senate plan crap. He said, quote, "I could give a damn about the White House. We're an independent branch of government. They cut this deal. I didn't sign off on it," unquote. Is his frustration justified? Were key players iced out? How do you get it through the House if you don't even have the support of the chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, who's a Democrat?
Well, as the president said, nobody got everything that they wanted in this deal. That's part of the nature of a compromise and certainly any kind of bipartisan negotiation. Let me also tell you, I have huge admiration for Chairman DeFazio. Was with him in his district just a couple of weeks ago, and the House has done extraordinary work on transportation policy. Of course, this speaks to the Senate's part of the process, and then this only moves once the House has been prepared to act on and support this too. But we're confident that we can get there. This represents priorities that not just in both parties and both chambers, but across America, we want and need. You know, we just saw another wave of endorsements and statements from business leaders, from mayors, from labor leaders. It is not that often that you have the largest business groups and labor unions across the country on the same page on an issue of economic policy. Mayors and governors from both parties saying, let's get this done. Of course, there's more to be done. There are details. There's policy issues that are very important alongside the dollar amounts. But what we have here is a major step closer to getting this done and getting this delivered.
But if DeFazio, who's a progressive and the chairman of the relevant committee in the House, calls this deal, calls this legislation, in his words, crap, how are you going to get support from all the Democratic progressives in the Senate and the House? That's a big chunk. You're going to need every one of them.
Well, there are a lot of priorities that he and his House colleagues care about, good priorities that have an opportunity to be addressed in this plan, in this deal as it moves forward. Obviously, a lot of complicated dynamics between the House and the Senate that have to be worked through in order to get this finalized onto the president's desk for a signature. But again, this represents a historic moment, not in my entire lifetime, and in many ways, not in the lifetime of the United States of America have we been prepared to do something like we're about to do, if this goes through, for public transit, for example. This is a historic investment in the future, not just making up for the failure to invest that we've inherited from the past that's been catching up to us, but doing the things we need to on our ports and airports, on our roads and bridges, on forms of infrastructure that nobody was talking about a few years ago, like broadband. And I think that the enormous momentum and support that this has among the American people, as well as from members of both parties in both chambers, and of course, the enthusiastic support of the president and this administration. I believe we're going to get this done.
Let me ask you a question about COVID, since unfortunately it's surging back across much of the country. Mr. Secretary, I've heard progressives and others out there saying it might be time to require vaccinations in order to be able to get on an airplane in this country for two reasons. One, it would boost vaccinations. Two, it's unfair to continue to have the vaccinated people in this country have to bend over backwards to the will of the unvaccinated people who are willingly unvaccinated, not those who are too young or not able to get the vaccine. What do you think of that? What do you think of this proposal to require vaccinations to be able to get on an airplane?
Well, we've taken a different approach that really emphasizes measures that we know make a difference, whether we're talking about masks or things like contact tracing that may be important for the future of international travel. But one thing is for sure, which is that the more Americans get vaccinated, the more we can move to that normal that we're all hoping to get to, whether it's getting rid of masks or whether it's being able to fully and safely reopen international travel, which of course hasn't happened yet. The fastest way to do that, and something that everybody can play a role in by either getting vaccinated yourself or encouraging loved ones who, remember, are often more likely to listen to you, a loved one, than they are to listen to me, an administration official. That's how we actually get there. And I think that there's been enormous progress, but we've clearly got a long way to go.